Hey, how's it going? So in today's video, I'm gonna be talking about parts work and the importance of realizing that you're multiple parts. Parts work is an extremely important part of mental health and emotional work, and I'd say that and having a good understanding of emotions are the two most important things that you need when doing emotional work. I think just understanding those two things alone will give you almost everything you need to know about how to work with your emotions and the different parts of you and how to heal. So it's really important. So generally you see yourself as one whole and one single individual, but in reality you're made up of multiple different parts. Each emotion or character trait or pretty much anything within you can be considered its own part, and each part of you has its own agenda and wants and needs and desires and things like that. So you as a whole function as an ecosystem of all these different parts and sides of you rather than just being one individual. When people have mental health issues, they generally don't understand why they feel the way that they do, and it seems to them that they're feeling the way they are for no reason because they don't feel hurt or like they have a reason to be feeling the way they do on the surface. When you look at yourself as a whole, it might be hard to understand why you feel the way that you do, and it might not make much sense to you. When you look at it through the lens of parts, you can see that it's not the whole of you that's hurt, but just one individual part. And when you are able to focus in on this one part and you can see just how hurt it is, it makes so much sense to you why you feel the way that you do and why you act the way that you do. You can check out my last video on how trauma turns into mental health issues for more information on this. When you have this perspective and you're able to work with the individual parts of you rather than focusing on the whole of you, you're able to narrow in much closer on the single part of you that's hurt, and that allows you to understand its situation much better, and because of that you know how to work with it and you know how to help it, and you're able to empathize with it, and that makes it much easier for you to help create resolve. When you focus in on the single part of you that's hurt and you understand its whole situation, it makes it much easier for you to understand why it's hurt and why it feels and acts the way it does, and you see that all this stuff is completely valid and understandable. And once you see that, you're able to stop fighting with yourself and stop opposing yourself, and you're able to sort of be there for yourself and be on your own side and have your own best interest in mind. And when you stop fighting with yourself, that's what will really help to reduce your pain and make it easier for you to deal with your mental health issues. Like I said, each part of you has its own agenda and its own wants and needs and feelings. And so when a part of you gets hurt and gets separated from you through trauma, it will have its own reactions to that, and it will develop its own sort of survival strategies for coping with those things. And so when you have mental health issues or when you do some sort of neurotic thing, these things are coming from these hurt parts of you, and all of these things are done for your own best interest according to the part of yourself that's hurt. And so of course the part of yourself might not have a good judgment or understanding on what is really best for you, but still you can understand why it would do those things and why it would act the way it does. And so you can see how all of the issues you might have are actually intended to be there for your own best interest. Again, you can check out my last video on how trauma turns into mental health issues to get a deeper understanding on how this works. So I wanted to give an example of myself for this situation. So I personally struggle or have struggled with social anxiety. It's not that bad now, but it was a lot worse in the past. And that comes from abandonment trauma in my childhood. And so the way that abandonment trauma turns into social anxiety is that this part of me that was abandoned and it was hurt by that and is stuck in that state through trauma, that part of me adopts the survival strategy of social anxiety as a way to sort of protect myself from being abandoned or hurt again in the future. And so it's natural and understandable for me to be anxious or afraid of talking to people or being in social situations after being abandoned, because it makes sense why you would avoid that stuff out of fear of being hurt again. And so obviously I know that that's not necessary, and because I was abandoned once doesn't mean it's going to happen again and things like that. But on an emotional level, from the parts of you that were hurt, they don't operate in that way, and so it's understandable why you would feel that way and act that way. And so you need to be able to work with the emotions of these parts of you to be able to help them heal and to integrate. And then once you do that, they'll naturally let go of these coping mechanisms and survival strategies. Again, like what I was saying in my last video is that all of the neuroses and mental health issues that you have are there for a good reason. Like, they're there for survival and as coping strategies. And so you shouldn't just try to get rid of them on the surface because they're there for a good reason. Instead, you need to resolve the underlying trauma that's creating the need for those things, and then they'll naturally dissipate on their own. So when you're resolving your mental health issues and healing trauma and things like that, you're working with the individual parts of yourself that were hurt rather than working with the whole of yourself. So there's a whole area of mental health work that's called parts work, and the whole idea of it is basically working with the different parts of yourself to resolve conflict within yourself and to create resolution and peace and harmony between the different parts of yourself. This is basically a form of shadow work, like integrating the repressed parts of yourself and creating peace between them. There's lots of different methods for doing parts work, things such as inner child's work or internal family systems, IFS, and then there's lots of other ones as well. But like I said, parts work and understanding why you're made up of multiple parts and just seeing yourself in that way, this is extremely important for doing mental health and emotional work, and it makes it much easier to understand your situation and why you feel and act the way that you do. And so because it's so helpful, it's just so important to understand. All mental health and emotional work is really just working with the different parts of yourself in one way or another. So this is just sort of an introductory video to parts work. So I'm going to be making more videos on this in the future, going deeper into different aspects of it, but hopefully this video gives you a good introduction to it. So please leave a like on this video if you liked it, leave a comment if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to say, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this and more stuff on parts work in the future, and I'll see you next time.